I know you're looking forward to the next person. Many of you have seen her on television. She's a writer for the Daily Caller and several other publications, but most of you know her from Fox News as a Fox News contributor. Please welcome Mary Katherine Ham.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Greeley has everything except for debt. It's amazing. 75-mile-an-hour speed limits. I love coming here from the East Coast. It's amazing. We got hecklers in jam shorts, just very 1987. And I'm glad to have the Occupy folks here because it means they're not somewhere plotting to blow up a bridge like those kids in Cleveland. Oh, and my favorite, the guy with the War on Women sign that only heckles women. Mr. Liberation over there. I'm glad to be with you guys here today. Glad to see you out in the park in this beautiful weather. And I want to talk a little bit about the Obama administration's strategy when it comes to energy, which is essentially this. If it costs the administration, the taxpayer, all of you, a gajillion dollars and has no hope of working, that's where we're going. If, on the other hand, like something like, oh, I don't know, Keystone Pipeline, it doesn't cost the government or the taxpayer or the administration a lot of money and would probably help, and 70% of the American people would like to do it, run the other direction. That's the plan. The president claims he's an all of the above energy guy, and you guys might want to take that up with him because that includes oil. So he's on your team. You might want to have a talk with him, or Hickenlooper about fracking. You might have more luck over there. But what we're doing is we're just throwing away money on things that don't work, and that's what concerns me. We're going to get to a point where the technology is there to make alternative fuels work, to make electric cars work, to make people happy to buy them, to make people be able to afford to buy them, because right now they're just subsidized toys for rich people. You might want to get on that too, Occupy. Right now we're not there, and what we're doing is we're throwing our money. We're unwilling investors in constantly failing companies that create products that don't work.
Solyndra.
Let's talk, my favorite one is Fisker. This is a great story. Fisker is a Danish auto company, electric cars. They cost $100K a pop. We gave Fisker itself about $500,000. We gave the A123 Systems, which supplies the batteries for Fisker, $279 million in grants. Due to the A123 battery's supercharged performance, the Fisker automobile at $107,000 went to Consumer Reports to be tested and broke down on the track before it was turned on. Thank you for your 300 million American taxpayers. Wow. It's insane. And I don't care who you are, left or right, the idea that we should be throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at things that demonstrably do not work. The only car in the history of Consumer Reports testing to break down on the track before it was tested. You know, if you want to pay the 300 million, you can write a check. There's private investment all over the place, kiddos. Just for perspective, Solyndra, 537 million. For perspective, the average venture capital fund, I'm not talking individual grants or individual loans, the entire fund, all those 1%ers getting together and trying to help build businesses that might actually work, an entire venture capital fund in 2011, $149 million. So we're giving 3 and 4 times the amount of an entire capital fund out of our pockets to companies that are buddies with Barack Obama. That's what we're doing. Right. That's the kind of cronyism Occupy loves. You guys have been quiet. And here's the deal. When it comes to things like Keystone, the president does say he's all of the above. We got 383 as the average in Colorado. It's hurting people. It's hurting him. He knows it. That's why he continues to talk about it and just yell at oil companies, which employ a lot of Americans and add a lot to tax bases and give us towns and counties that have no debt. A little lesson they could maybe learn over at the Obama administration. My favorite part is when he says, well, look, we're going to let Keystone build this part inside the U.S. Another thing you guys might want to take up with him. We're going to let him build that. It's like, you don't get credit for bringing more energy to the U.S. just because you were kind enough to take your neck off the dude before he stopped breathing. That's not the way this works. But that's essentially what he does, and then he says, hey, look at me. Look at all this energy I've brought. Well, no, if you had just allowed us to work with our allies to bring energy from a friendly country right over the border, we would have been A-okay.
George Bush's fault anyway.
Canadians don't want tar sands providing their own country.
Yeah. Anyway. But what it strikes me as is the government funding these kinds of organizations and losing all this money. Beacon Energy, Enter1, every single one of them, they're busts. They just fail because the government is a terrible investor. Why is the government a terrible investor? Because they do nothing for the money. They just take it from you. Yes. And there's no accountability. And when they go under, like Solyndra did, what happens? Just like with Chrysler, they pay off Obama's donors before they pay off the taxpayer because those guys come first. And that's the cronyism maybe you guys should look into. So in the future, let's actually invest in some things that work. Let's have the occupiers take their fund and privately invest in crappy automobiles that break down or catch fire, Chevy Volt, or people buy 100 of. They're free to do that. In fact, investing in losing causes is something they do frequently. So, let's have them do that. Let's have our money be our money. And the government can stop investing in the equivalent of 8-track tapes while the private investors finally figure out how to get this working. In the meantime, we'll live like real people who understand that gas moves the economy, who understand that many people rely upon it, who understand that when you plug in an electric car, that electricity ain't coming from unicorns.
That's right. Good one. That's yeah.
Thank you very much.